Hey guys, today on the BodCast, I'm talking with friend and performing strongman Mark Burnett. Mark and I talk about getting uncomfortable to experience the strength that you already have inside you. This is a great show, and I hope you enjoy it. Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength Podcast. Well, Mark, you are an old-time strongman,
Yes.
and well, how did you get to become like what made you decide that you wanted to be a strongman?
That's a real good question. Actually, and I'm going to go back, if you don't mind, I'm going to go
Yeah.
back to just a little bit of history. It was almost 10 years ago that you and I met
Yes.
at the SFG, the very second one ever in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. And that was the week after the Boston bombing. Which I'm sure you remember well.
I
Everything
do.
was locked down. I mean, they were still looking for the guys. And you and I were talking, I think, the second morning because we moved to the right-hand side of the soccer complex. And we're talking. I think I came over and introduced myself or something. And there were people crawling and rolling as part of their warm-up. And I asked you, I was like, how does it feel to see this and know that you went, it's kind of weird because Becoming Bulletproof had already come out. I had it, I'd read it. And so fast forward 6 months or so, you were in Nashville at Dave Whitley's place doing a Becoming Bulletproof workshop.
Right.
I was there. Well, earlier that summer, actually, probably around the beginning of the summer, I had a little voice in the back of my head that said, you need to learn how to bend steel. Where it came from, I had no clue, had not had interest in it before, but it would not go away.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in Nashville. Yeah, Nashville. At Dave's place for the Becoming Bulletproof workshop. I knew he did some of that. And during the workshop, one of the afternoon breaks, I went over and said, Dave, I've had this little voice in the back of my head. And it won't go away. It says, I need to learn how to bend steel. And, he laughed. And he's like, I think we can take care of that. And he had bent in the morning. We've been doing some of the progression stuff. In the morning, he brought a red nail out, which he was preparing to certify on, and bent it and said, that's the fastest I've ever bent one of these. He's like, I don't know what this stuff is, but he's like, that's the fastest I've ever bent a red nail. So anyway, I asked him that afternoon. He laughed. He sent me a private video link a few days later on how to bend a 60 penny timber tie. Told me to go buy some timber ties, get some leather, and start practicing. And he was working on getting Dennis Rogers in to Nashville to do a workshop in November. So Dennis Rogers is probably the strongman you've seen on TV. If you've seen one in the past, probably 30 years, 20 to 30 years. And Dennis was a world champion arm wrestler. And when he retired from that, he started looking around and saying, what next? Found out about the old-time strongman thing. Found Slim the Hammer Man Farman, and went and trained with Slim, and then became kind of the face of strongman. Slim was Slim passed away a couple of years ago, and he was in his mid-80s. So Slim was, he was getting a little older, wasn't doing as much. And then Dennis kind of took over and kept it alive, so to speak. And then I went to that workshop. The first thing we did, the very first day, it was a day and a half workshop. Or 2 days. I guess it was 2 days. First thing we did was, okay, we're going to bend short steel, which is 6 inches, 8 inches. We were bending 60 penny nails, which are a 1/4 inch in diameter and 6 inches long. They look just like that. They started off with timber ties. Everybody just crushed those except me. And everybody's moving up. They're crushing up. They're just destroying nails left and right. And I can't bend a timber tie to save me. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be a really long week. I can't do the first feat that we're working on. So Dennis said, well, hang on, we're gonna move to the next thing. We'll circle back around. We got the horseshoes. They handed horseshoes out to everybody. They gave me a really, really wimpy horseshoe, which I absolutely understand. And everybody opened their horseshoes up, and some people were twisting them around into heart shapes and things like that. And Dennis came back by and he's like, you already bent one? And I was like, yeah, I bent this wimpy one. And he dug around in the bucket and he pulled a horseshoe out and said, here, wrap this up and bend it. And I wrapped it up, dug into it, threw everything I had into it. It opened it up some more, stuck it on the top of my thigh, drove into it, got it open past 180 degrees, which is technically where that counts for twisting a horseshoe. And went, oh, cool. And Dennis, he's like, that was a legitimate horseshoe. He's like, that was a real horseshoe. He's like, you're good. So, and after that, the rest of the day was just, I was one of, if not the first, to tear a deck of cards, to tear a phone book. We did the longer steel the second day. We got to the end of the first day, and that's where we were driving a nail with our hands. And when I saw that listed, I thought, I really don't need to know how to do that. And and Dennis starts off with telling us a story of how he was at a performance, did not have a stable platform to put the board across. So they brought out a couple of bar stools and he put the board on it. And when he came down onto the board, they compressed and came back. And it actually pushed the head of the nail. You fold up a washcloth, to give yourself a little bit of padding. It pushed it through the washcloth and into his hand.
Oh man.
And he realized what happened and he pulled it out, stuck his hand behind him and continued to talk. And somebody off stage saw what had happened and went, no, show's over. And they took him to the hospital and got permission to video it. It's online somewhere where he's laughing, going, well, I guess I got a place to hang my keys now. So he tells us that story first. And then we all, and I just hung back. I thought, yeah, I'm just going to sit this one out. And he looked around the room and went, Mark, you haven't done it. Come on up. He just had me take an easy swing the first time. He said, I just want you to know how it feels to kind of hit the board with the nail, just to show that it's not a big deal. Pulled that one out, gave me another nail, and first swing, I put it through. So, yeah. And the next day we did longer steel, 2 feet, 2 foot and 4 foot pieces of steel. We scrolled those. And that's what got me started.
So that was about almost 10 years ago?
Almost 10 years ago. Yeah.
Coming
in November, it'll be 10 years.
What happened during that workshop where like what happened? Like you said you struggled with the easy nail and then all of a sudden you're doing like
the rest
Herculean strength the rest of the day.
That I still haven't figured out. It took me until January of the next year, which I was back in Nashville to assist at the SFG that Dave that Dave put on. And again, Dave's bending nails, other people are bending nails, we're kind of walking through stuff. And he said something one of the days, he's like, well, you got to think about it. He said, if you wanted to just bend a nail, He's like, you probably just take it over, put it in a vise, cinch it down, and grab the top of it and just crank it. It's like, yeah. He's like, think of your chin as that vise. And I don't know what that triggered. I don't know what that clicked. But the next morning, I got up, wrapped up a timber tie, and it bent like it had a hinge on it.
Oh, wow.
And I bent another one. And then I bent more the rest of the day. And I just stayed with the timber ties until they were getting really, really easy. And I pulled out an actual 60 penny nail and it bent. Yeah.
So when you're bending steel, like horseshoes and nails and stuff, is it like, I guess is it a combination of things? Is it strength? Is it technique? Is it visualization? Is it belief? It like what goes into it?
Yes. And I know you've answered that way before, so I feel safe. Yes, there is strength involved. Absolutely, it takes X amount of pressure before steel will start to deflect. Period. And granted, different grades of steel bend at different tolerances, things like that. But so yes, there is strength involved. The technique or the trick is knowing where to put it so you can apply the most leverage to it. As an example, if I were to wrap this nail up, wrap suede around the ends to protect your hands, and if I hand this, and I've done it over and over and over, it's funny because men will come up after seeing a feed and go, okay, what's the trick? Women just accept it. Guys want to know there's got to be a trick.
There's a lesson in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's a trick to it. It's got to be. But if I were to wrap this up and hand it to you, almost every person I've given it to drops it down to about here or maybe a little lower, and they just go at it, even though they've just seen me bend one. And I was nowhere near here. I was up here. Because if you're doing it down here, what do you really have to put into it? Your wrists, maybe a little bit of forearm, but not much. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do here. Here, your shoulders are open. They're ready to roll forward so you can put all of the strength in your upper body into making that bend. So knowing where to put it that's the technique part. Doing a horseshoe, you drive it into the side of your thigh to start with. And that anchors the toe so that you can use whichever hand is your more dominant hand. You can use that to also drive into your thigh to give it a solid anchor so that you can drive down with the other hand. Belief is a very good part of it. I know I can bend it. Now I do. There's also, not all bends, but quite a few of the bends, there's a discomfort level involved that stops most people. It gets to the point where it's kind of, ooh, that's not fun anymore, and they stop. And that to me is as big a lesson or as big a thing to think about as any is discomfort is only discomfort. Discomfort's not pain. Pain's different. Pain's another level above that. But discomfort is where most people stop. Whether it be physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, you tick things down. Discomfort is where people stop. And if you get past that, you tolerate that discomfort a little bit, beautiful things can happen on the other side. I mean, it really, it kind of opens it. It's almost like you're paying your toll. That's the ticket for the ride. You're paying. That's the ticket. You're the price you're paying for the ticket for this wonderful ride on the other side of it.
So that's a beautiful explanation. What are there ways that you actually purposefully train levels of discomfort so that you can get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Not now, but I, looking back, I've done that a lot throughout my life, just as probably because I'm stubborn, um, or bullheaded, or however you want to. When I was younger, there was a show called Kung Fu on, featuring, starring David Carradine.
David Carradine.
Yeah, Kwai Chang Caine. Watching that show, the mental part of it was always kind of intrigued. Them doing things in the snow, or even when he lifts the big urn at the end. That's just dealing with. That's not discomfort. That was pain.
Yeah.
And then falling out into a snowscape. I mean, looked like he was in the Himalayas, but I grew up in the South and Southwest, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, that whole area. And we were living in Arkansas. We would go to the lake, go swimming all day, and come back, and it would be getting cooler in the evening. And we're riding in the back of the pickup truck because that's what you did. And I would sit cross-legged in the back of the pickup truck with everybody else huddled up next to the cab with towels around them or whatever they could get. And I would sit back there and just not ignore the discomfort, but get okay with it. I knew it was part of what needed, I mean, it was just me doing it myself, but, and, from there, I was a cyclist for a very long time. I still love to ride my bike, but I don't ride it enough to call myself a cyclist anymore. At least I don't feel like I do. And I competed. I raced bicycles, and that is one of the most uncomfortable things you can do. It is nonstop suffering. It's just terrible. And the fact that everybody that was doing it all did it voluntarily is kind of strange. But your heart feels like it's pounding out of your chest. You don't feel like you're getting enough air. Your legs are screaming at you constantly, and you just got to push through, going, everybody else is feeling the same way. And if I hang on just a little bit longer, somebody will slow down. Sometimes I was successful at that, and sometimes I was not. But so, like I said, there have been things, I did powerlifting for a little bit before I got into the kettlebells. The kettlebells can be uncomfortable. I think the grad exercise, that's really all. It's just to see who's going to quit.
Right.
And we were doing the one in Boston. I think we did Dan John's armor building, right? 2 cleans, a press, 3 squats, 20 minutes, I believe. You go, I go. So that was 20 rounds of that. And just to see, all right, who's going to slow down, who's going to quit.
So basically you calloused yourself to discomfort, and to the point now where it's just something you call Tuesday.
It's discomfort. I mean, I know the difference, and I'm willing to put up with some discomfort. Taking a piece of 1/2-inch rebar or even 1/2-inch round steel, wrapping a shock collar around the middle of it, putting it right here on the bridge of my nose, and then bending it.
Ooh.
is uncomfortable.
I bet. That sounds uncomfortable.
But yeah, you kind of see things a little bit and high pitched tone in your ears, but it's over pretty quick. And I have had people. I've done quite a few talks at schools, and I open a horseshoe up on the side, and then you take the toe and you put the shoe right in the middle of your thigh, and you grab each heel and you just drive down with everything you have, your weight and everything you've got, and that goes straight into the front of your into your quadriceps. And I looked up and I went, yeah, that hurts every time. And then I went ahead and twisted it around and made a heart shape out of it. And a little girl raised her hand. She's like, if it hurts, why do you do it? It's like, well, it doesn't really. I say, it's momentary, and it's a step that has to be taken to get it to the end result. If I didn't do that, it wouldn't look like this, and I'm okay with that. And she was young. It probably went over her head, but who knows?
Okay, so that I'm glad you brought that up. So you talk so what is a performing strongman? It's not just. It is impressive feats of strength, but you do more than just feats of strength. Like you said, you did some talks at schools. What do you do? What do you?
Well, I mean, and there are shows where I just go out and repurpose things. I just go out there for however long I've got and just, roll frying pans and twist horseshoes and just have fun. But I do. I've done talks at schools. I've done talks for companies. I've done a variety of things, and a lot of what I talk about is actually my talk has changed somewhat. To start with, I talked about focus, I talked about passion, I did talk about mindset, self-talk, things like that. And it dawned on me that the focus and passion piece are all really part of mindset. That the mindset is what drives your passion, and if you've got the passion, the focus almost just automatically kind of comes into it. Your self-talk is still amazingly important. I mean, you can't overemphasize how watching what you're saying to yourself is incredibly important, because you're talking to yourself more than anybody else is talking to you all day long. It doesn't matter where you're at. That internal dialogue, at least with me, I understand some people don't have that, but
I'm not one of those.
Yeah, I'm not either. So that internal dialogue, catching yourself, and that's kind of the I think the trick is catching when you're saying something self-defeating or negative, catching that and going, wait, no, and just reframe it and then move forward. But
why does that matter? Why does that matter? Like if you're always talking to yourself, are you always listening to yourself too? And how does that affect? How does that affect you?
Yeah, you always listen to yourself. I mean, it's running there. You're hearing yourself. You're hearing that more than anything else. So if you start listening and it's a constant stream of negativity or lack or underperformance, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can put that. It makes a difference. Now, not sure if I go quite as far. Bruce Lee talked about your self-talk. And he's like, there's words are made up of characters, and if you put them in the right order, that's called spelling. And they're called spells for a reason. It's because they can cast a power on you. And I'm paraphrasing, probably horribly, but
still, that's a good way of
putting it. What the words you say to yourself count. They really do. driving north and south between Ohio and Florida. It's not in your state, so I'm gonna. I-95 in South Carolina is the worst stretch of that almost 1,000-mile drive. It's terrible. I mean, I dread it. I did dread it. Now it's going to happen the way it happens. Yes, there's more traffic on here than there should be, probably, and everybody's driving. They're not driving with everyone else's welfare in their mind. They're trying to get up on somebody. It's almost a competition. You just kind of have to sit back. You just kind of have to let it go and realize that's what's going to be. It's not that long a drive until you hit Georgia, and then it opens up to 3 lanes, and it's like, where was all the traffic? Where did all the traffic go? Yeah, I can't say I look forward to it, because I do. But I do. I get myself in their correct mindset, and you just let people do what they're going to do anyway, and don't let it affect you. I mean, I've got two sons, and when they were growing up, I tried to pound it into them, and I mean, it was reinforcement for me as well. Is you cannot control your circumstances. All you can control are how you respond to them. And so, if I'm going to get stuck on 95 going north or south through South Carolina, I may as well relax. And me getting angry with somebody isn't going to change a thing. It's just going to get me angry. So I kind of had to have a meeting with myself and go, come on, get over this 95 thing.
That's good it's good to hear you say that, because 95 is the road I dread getting on more than anything.
Yeah. And yeah, the farther north you get, I'm sure the worse it gets, but
it's a doozy.
Yes, that it is.
So you've got a project you're working on right now, right?
Yeah, just started. And the reason that this whole thing came about is as of the first of the summer last year, I decided to quit the 9 to 5 rat race, and I am now retired.
Congratulations.
And well, thank you. And part of that was, I'm now an RV person. We're going to see how it works out. We've got one. We're going to give it a shot, and if it fits, then great. If not, then we'll sell it. But talking about traveling around, because we're planning on heading out west and eventually the West Coast. We talked about Alaska. I have never been to the northern tier of the U.S. So Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, and I believe Wisconsin. And I have not been to New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Those are the only states that I've not been to at one point or another, or lived in, or been to for one thing or one reason or another. So we were talking about that, and I was talking to Chris Ryder, who I still have a strongman coach. We were talking about that, and it's like, as we're traveling around these states, the idea initially came up with was you could tear a license plate for each state you go into. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I started looking at the prices of used license plates for all 50 states and went, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. And some of them, there was no guarantee I was going to get a decent license plate. There were a lot of challenges to making that happen. So, yeah, it popped into my head. It's like, well, I can just tear a deck of cards every state I go into. So that became 52 in 50. And I'm just kind of started this whole thing. I've done Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas. I've got video for Florida. I've not posted. West Virginia's posted. Virginia, I think I'm going to put out tomorrow. Got North and South Carolina, and I didn't do Alabama. We were driving across. We'd gotten slowed down in Atlanta, which I think that's just synonymous with Atlanta. Is you got slowed down, and it was getting dark. It was getting later, and we needed to get to our campsite. And I went, I'll get Alabama another time. We're gonna keep going. So I still have to get Alabama, but yeah, it's as I travel around, I can hit the welcome to and tear a deck of cards. I'm taking video of it, and hopefully I'll get all 50 states before it's all said and done. I think my great niece is going to get married in Hawaii, so that may be my.
There you go. That's awesome.
Get off the plane, they'll put a lei on you, and walk over to the welcome to Hawaii and tear a deck of cards.
So 10 years ago, you heard this voice.
Yep.
Where did the voice come from?
I really haven't questioned it a whole lot. I just took it as a voice. I mean, some people would say, some people would say the universe. Some people would say God. I mean, I know when becoming bulletproof /OS, you got a message. And I really haven't tried to figure out where it came from. I'm just glad that I took action on it.
That's awesome.
And I was talking to somebody. They were, actually, he was a psychologist. And I was like, yeah, this little voice in the back of my head. It's like, but I don't know. I don't remember how I asked it. He's like, those are good to listen to as long as it's not telling you to burn down your neighbor's house or do something bad. He's like, listen to those little voices. They're good. I was like, yeah, but how do you know? So I really haven't tried to define where it came from. I do my best to pay more attention to them because it has led me on an interesting journey so far. I mean, it's I've met people that I never would have met otherwise, and it's partly because here, let me bend something for you, and they go, what? And then we start talking after that. I've gotten to be friends with the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band, which is the Reverend on guitar, his wife Breezy on washboard, and then they've got a drummer, Max, and that's the Big Damn Band. Yeah, I went to a couple of their shows. After one of them, I went, hey, Rev, I'd like to do something for you. He's like, what's that? And I pulled a horseshoe out of my back pocket and cranked it into a heart for him and gave it to him. And yeah, we've been in contact, and I see them anytime they're near. They have me, I sit and I've had some really nice discussions with the Rev about strength. He loves kettlebells, so strength training, just a variety of things. We were talking at one point. One of the things that we haven't touched on, and I don't know if it'll come around to it, but actually getting back to one of the first questions you had, technique, strength, this belief. Part of it is teaching your mind that it's okay. Our mind has been really good at keeping us safe, for a really long time now. I mean, as a species, but it's kind of conservative. So when I'm working on a new bend or something that's I am not able to do now, you can chunk that into little pieces maybe and work at it enough to where your mind finally says, you know, he's not getting hurt now. I'll allow a little more. And suddenly that piece starts dropping. So you kind of, as far as our capacity for just physical strength, it's not unlimited, but it is so far above what we ever use in day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
You know, the stories, you know, the mom picking the minivan up, the two sisters, teenage girls that picked a tractor up off their dad when it rolled over. There was a guy that stopped a boulder rolling down a hill. What they don't tell you is the back end of those stories are those people end up in the hospital for 6 to 9 months because their musculature, their tendons and ligaments, nothing is ready for that level of strength. We have it within us, but you've got to you've got to slowly, again, convince your mind that it's safe to be able to
or needed.
Yeah. to exhibit that kind of strength.
100%.
I was talking to the Reverend about that, and we were kind of having the same discussion. He's like, yeah, you know, one time a guy pulled up and evidently he didn't put his car in the park, and he got out and went in the store and it started rolling back toward Breezy. And he said, I jumped out. He's like, I stopped this car from rolling back down a hill. And it's like, yeah, you weren't thinking about you, were you? It's like all thought shut down because you were protecting Breezy. And he was like, yeah. And it's like, we have it within us. It's learning, again, convincing your mind to give you that little bit more. And then kind of push up against that wall until it says, nothing bad's happened here. And then it gives you a little bit more and a little bit more.
So self-preservation is a strength and performance limiter.
Very much so, yeah.
Right on. Mark, if people want to keep track of your shenanigans and follow you as you go around ripping cards everywhere, where can they go?
Well, there's a couple of places. I put it on my YouTube channel every week. Well, if I have a video to post, and that's just Mark Burnett Strongman. Don't get me confused with the guy that produces Survivor.
Both still as exciting, just a different area.
And on Instagram, it's a power within, and Facebook it's just Mark Burnett. And well, I don't know if it says Strongman on that or not. I don't think they let you. I don't know. I do have a website, but right now I'm redoing it. So, but that's a powerwithin.us.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a power within us.
That's awesome. Very appropriate.
I was happy when it was like, oh, that one's available. I think that's it. So.
Last question, maybe,
sure.
Or last two questions. Do you like peanut butter?
Yes.
Crunchy or creamy?
I prefer crunchy.
And the third question of the two, what brand do you like?
I like the fresh ground stuff, but it would have to be Jif.
All right, on.
If
fresh
I'm
ground
not
is good.
If it's not the fresh ground where But if you don't stay on top of that, it separates, and you've got a lot of stirring to do, and
It's
getting
a hassle.
it can be.
And Jif is always faithful. It's always consistent. It's always the same.
Until they have a recall on it, and then
until they have a recall. Mark, this has been a lot of fun, and it's been just really just awesome and educational. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Well, thank you for having me on, Tim. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again. Thanks for listening, everyone. Now get outside and play.